A crazy entitled Karen follows me around town for over an hour, claiming that I tried to have my dog bite her and that she was going to have me arrested for my dog going to the bathroom on her property. And I've honestly never met anybody this insane in my life. Here's what happened. So last night at around 10 o'clock p.m., I was taking my dog for a walk through the neighborhood. We don't have a yard, so we have to walk her 3 times a day so she can do her business. I always pick up after her, and people usually give a friendly wave when they see us. That is, until tonight. My dog starts doing her duty at the edge of someone's yard while I stand on the street holding the leash. I'm starting to pull out my doggy bag when this lady comes running up and starts yelling at me. She says to me, "Do not let your dog poop right here." Now, I was surprised and weirded out, but I told her, "Don't worry, I'm gonna pick it up." Well, she keeps yelling as she gets closer. "No, don't let your dog poop on my property. My window is open and I don't want to smell it. Control your dog and make your dog stop right now." Now, my dog was mid-business meeting, if you know what I mean. So I explained that dogs don't work that way. I told her that I can't stop her from pooping, but I will pick it up when she's done. Now, at this point, it's pretty clear the lady's not listening to me and just keeps getting closer to us, yelling about dog poop or something like that. Well, my dog starts growling at her. So I warn her by saying, "Please don't get close to my dog. She does bite." Then the lady says to me, "Okay, I'm calling the cops. They're going to arrest you." I say to her, "That's fine," and I ask her to please go in her house and call the cops. She tries to enter her house, but it seems whoever she lives with has locked her out of the house, and it makes me think, man, I wonder why. She then starts running towards me, and I again warn her that my dog will bite. My dog is growling and barking now because dogs don't like screaming Karens in their face. This entitled Karen starts screaming at me to pick up the poop and that she's calling the police to have me arrested. I said to her, "Ma'am, I'll deal with that later. Right now, though, your hostile behavior is creating an unsafe situation for me and my dog. So I think we're gonna leave now." She then starts screaming profanities, calling me names and chasing after me. So I just continue to walk away, thinking that it will end there. But nope, she continues to follow me down the street. I hear her yelling into her phone at the police to come and arrest me. I hear her telling them that I apparently was gonna have my dog bite her. But I literally just kept walking, knowing that the cops are telling her to go home and they'll deal with it later, which is honestly wishful thinking at best. She continues to walk behind me at about a 15-foot distance. She's now yelling in another language at someone who I assume is the person who locked her out of the house, and I just hope that she'll stop following me eventually so I can go home. I don't want her to see where I live, so I take several detours, but she just keeps following me from 15 feet away. I don't have my phone, so I can't call for help, so I decide to head into the downtown area to try and find somebody who might be able to help me. This entitled Karen literally followed me almost a mile into town from 15 feet away. She just silently followed me walking my dog through neighborhoods, business districts, and across the highway into town. She had her phone out recording me, and I was getting really annoyed. I eventually made it to a busy bar with 5 young men standing outside, and unfortunately they were all speaking in a foreign language as well. So I turn around and tell the lady to stop following me. She then starts yelling at me, "You follow me back to my house for the police to arrest you. You said you were gonna have your dog bite me. You better follow me right now because I want the police to arrest you." I told her, "Okay, sure, I'll follow you. You lead the way." And trust me, she was almost dumb enough to fall for it. But she saw me try to slip away, but then turned around and started her whole yelling thing again. Meanwhile, the young men outside the bar just kept talking amongst themselves. I continued walking through town with a lady following me, recording me on her phone. I finally ran into a woman who approached me with a very concerned look on her face. I said to her, "Listen, can you please help me? This lady has been following me for over an hour." The nice lady said, "I know, I've been watching this go on for a minute." She then confronted the entitled Karen, telling her to leave me alone. And it was then that the nice lady looked at me and told me to go. So while this entitled Karen was busy yelling at the nice lady about how my dog pooped on her property or whatever, I just started running. I ran through a couple businesses and onto a back street and managed to lose this entitled Karen. I walked a full mile back to my house and I locked the door behind me. Now, I don't know what kind of crazy that was, but all I know is that I feel really bad for whoever was inside that house with the doors locked, because I can only imagine having to live with that entitled Karen. Okay, so first off, this entitled Karen really is crazy. Like, who in their right mind would follow someone for that long and act that insane over a dog crapping in their yard? But also, to the original poster, you really shouldn't have done that in the first place. Like, sure, her reaction was like way out of line, but you really should have taken your dog somewhere else and like not done that on their yard, I can kind of understand why she would be upset, but the way she went about handling this was like insane. She was lying to the police, saying you're trying to get your dog to bite her, and then she literally followed you for over a mile. We're talking like an hour of walking around the city. Like, that is some crazy behavior. So good for you for getting away from that Karen, and hopefully you don't go near that neighborhood ever again, because I'm sure that entitled Karen would love to run into you again and give you a piece of her mind. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejurk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My mother has gone no contact with me after I finally tell her that I'm not getting married in my home state. And now, as a result of not getting her way, she has completely cut contact with me and is now refusing to talk to me. And now I feel very hurt, and I simply don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, I got engaged 2 days ago. My mom was very happy as she loves my fiance. We have been together for 5 years, and she has always been very accepting of him and our relationship. And it's important to know that my mom has triggers that will usually set her off, especially if she feels like she's being abandoned or unwanted. And this will be important later on. Today, my older sister asked me what our wedding plans are in a group chat with her, my mom, and myself. She wanted to know if I was eloping or if we were having a traditional wedding. Ideally, my fiance and I would love to get eloped since we both struggle with social anxiety. However, I told her that we would be happy having a small, immediate family-only wedding, mostly so I could appease my mom and his family. Well, when I said that, my mother immediately said to me, "You have to have it here though." And when she says that I have to have it here, she means my home state, which I absolutely hate and I don't want to do. This, of course, upset her, and her response was to say, "What about your grandma, your friends, and my friends?" Now, when she said my friends, that honestly got me. Why do her friends have to come along? Now, for reference, I live in another state with my fiance and his family, and I told my mom, who is very wealthy and doesn't work, that they could very easily come here. She is constantly traveling all over the world, so I figured a 1-hour plane ride would be no big deal. I even said that we could make appointments and set dates for any dress shopping or venue shopping because my mother-in-law and sister-in-law would like to be included as well. They love me, and I have been considered a part of their family ever since we met. My mother-in-law works, and my sister-in-law works and goes to school full-time, so they're not as financially well off to be buying plane tickets. Now, this is where I might have messed up, because after I said that, she immediately responded by saying, "Oh, so I'm excluded from that too? Fine, I don't want to talk anymore." And it's like she just didn't even read any of my text messages, because obviously I want my mom with me. I love my mom, and I always have despite the problems that we've had. My sister tried to reassure me and said it would be okay, and that she has been through this before with her too. In fact, my mom refused to talk to her after she moved across the country with her own husband. I'm honestly just so tired of the manipulation, and I almost don't even want to invite her anymore, knowing that something else will trigger her again along the way of planning. And she gets so mean about it and tries to make you feel guilty. So honestly, I guess I just need to know that I'm not crazy and that I have the freedom to make my own decisions and not worry about what my mom's reaction might be. I'm honestly so hurt, and I now don't know what to do. Yeah, your mom's acting really rational. It seems like she didn't get her way, so now she's like, "Oh, I'm just not gonna talk to you." And that's just super immature. There's no reason to be doing that. Like, it really sounds like she has every opportunity available to literally take the time and fly out to your wedding. She has the money, she has the time, and it just sounds like she's being lazy. And that's the only reason she's like, "Oh, but you're gonna have the wedding here, right?" Like, that, in my opinion, is just so uncalled for, and there's no reason for her to be so selfish towards you. So I definitely don't think you're the jerk here. I think that your mom is being completely irrational, and hopefully she realizes that sooner than later. Am I the jerk for not wanting to visit my wife's grandparents after they gave my lazy brother-in-law a $50,000 truck? Because right now I feel very jaded about the entire situation, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my brother-in-law is 28 years old with no job. He lives in my in-laws' basement. He is obese and survives off of welfare checks from the Canadian government. He is capable of working but just chooses not to. My wife, on the other hand, is 26 years old and moved out when she was 18. She self-funded a degree, she works in a good field and makes $80,000 annually, got married, and has never sought a handout from her parents or grandparents even though they both have the means. We spent our vacation time the last 2 years visiting her grandparents who live across the country. Recently, her grandparents moved out of their house and into their retirement living and no longer had space for both of their vehicles. Her grandfather decided to give my brother-in-law a truck with a fair value of about $50,000. His justification was to help him build confidence and give him something to care for. Meanwhile, my wife was given nothing, and they did not do anything to even out the gift. We have a trip planned to visit them in a few months, but I have no interest in going to see them. I am mad at myself for letting money ruin my perception of them, but I do not appreciate how my wife was treated. I feel that they take her for granted. We always go out of our way to visit them, and all of our trips are self-funded. We have never asked anything of them, while lots of her cousins have been bailed out financially. I just have this icky feeling about the entire thing. My wife got upset when I told her I wanted to do something else with our vacation time. She got really upset, and it led to an argument. She took the stance that we have to enjoy our time with them while we have it. My wife and I are currently saving for our first house, we're paying off student loans, and we're saving for our first child. We still drive my very first car I bought 10 years ago, and the situation just really hurts, as we could really use the help, all while her brother lives a free ride and gets nothing but help all the time. So am I the jerk for not wanting to see my wife's grandparents because of this? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk for not wanting to go, but in my opinion, I think you really should support your wife no matter what she decides to do. Like, she's the one who would really know her family above anybody else, so if she wants to go and see her family for a weekend or for like some vacation time of some kind, then I think it would be a good idea to follow her lead and just go. It might be one of those situations where it's like, oh man, I'm gritting my teeth and I'm bearing this the entire time, but if that's what you've got to do so that your wife can feel happy about visiting her grandparents, then honestly, so be it. Just don't spend any time with your brother-in-law and maybe that'll fix the problem. Because at the end of the day, this is your wife's family, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would try to be supportive. Am I the jerk for being upset at my wealthy friend, all because she wouldn't even let me borrow $5, despite the fact that I've helped her countless times when she was poor? Because right now, I am deeply hurt, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So, my best friend and I have been friends for nearly 7 years. When we first met, she was struggling financially and lived paycheck to paycheck. At one point, her car broke down and she had no transportation to work. So I would let her borrow my car and never asked her for any gas money or anything in return. At the time, I was financially secure and I was happy to help her out. As the years went by, my financial situation changed, and just like her, I began living paycheck to paycheck. By this time, she had started dating a guy she met online who revealed to her a few months into dating that he was a millionaire. They married shortly after, and suffice to say, she has not had to struggle since. There have been a few times I've asked to borrow money, which I've always paid back, and it's usually not much, maybe less than $25 or so each time, and she would always oblige with no problems until recently. The last couple of times I asked to borrow money, she said that she didn't have it, which I found really odd. But then I asked to borrow $5, and she said the same thing, and I just thought it was weird that she told me she didn't have $5 to spare. I know that ever since she got married, her brothers and a couple other friends have tried taking advantage of her newfound wealth by asking to borrow money that never got paid back, and having her bail them out of situations that they put themselves in, and in that, they have cost her a lot of money. I started to think that maybe I had forgotten to pay her back money that I owed her at some point, so I reached out to her to ask if that was the case. When she told me that wasn't the case any longer, as in I had always paid her back, I told her I felt hurt, because it felt like if I needed her help with something, that I couldn't reach out to her for help because she couldn't even let me borrow $5. She replied and said that just like her brothers, I needed to learn how to budget my money better, and that she can't be the one to bail everyone out. She said that when she was struggling, she had to work multiple jobs and did what she had to do. But I replied and said that it was not fair for her to lump me in with her brothers, as I have never done anything to take advantage of her, and I never would have said something like that to her when I let her borrow my car, or anytime she would ask me to borrow money when she was struggling. I told her that I loved her, but that I was ending the conversation, and she replied that this is why money and friends should never mix. Since then, she has reached out and said that she didn't deserve that conversation last night, and that she really wanted me to know that, which I have not replied to, and I have no plans to do so. I am deeply hurt that she feels I was in the wrong, but I do not think that I was the jerk here. I understand that I'm not entitled to anybody's money, borrowed or not, but when she was in my shoes, I did everything I could to help her out. out. I could understand if I asked to borrow large amounts of money, but I literally asked for $5, and now I worry that my friendship is completely ruined. Okay, I want to start this off by saying that I don't think you're the jerk, but I do think you kind of set your friend up in a way. It really seems like any kind of help you gave her in the past is coming off as like some kind of transactional thing where you're expecting her to step in the way that you did for her. And I just don't think that's fair at all, and I think you're setting up a weird precedent by asking for money really consistently. Like, just think about her perspective for a second. She suddenly married a millionaire, and now everybody and their mother is asking her for money. And this is especially true for her brothers and a couple of other friends. She's probably feeling really taken advantage of, and you're probably one of many people asking her for money. Like, I totally understand where you're coming from because it is just $5, but like if somebody asked me over and over again for money and then made this huge stink about me not giving them $5, like I would be pretty frustrated as well. So I don't think you're totally the jerk, but I also don't think you're not at fault, because in my opinion, it really seems like a mountain was made out of a molehill. Not to mention that there's a lot of information from your friend that we just don't know. But regardless, if this really is as good of a friend as you're claiming, hopefully you guys can work this out and find some kind of compromise to be better friends again. Because what you just described does not sound like a healthy friendship in the slightest. And hopefully the both of you are able to talk this out and find some kind of middle ground with this situation. My ex-boyfriend wants to meet up for closure a month after the breakup. And after the way he broke up with me, I'm honestly feeling very hesitant. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old female, and my ex-boyfriend and I recently broke up. For context, we were together for 2 years and we were long distance. I work full-time in my state. I run a small animal shelter and do content creation on the side, while he works very flexible hours and is mostly remote, so he's always the one visiting me. He's a 6-hour drive away, and he puts a lot of effort into visiting me every other month or so. Well, I recently just started a new job, which although was fully remote, was also really stressful. So when he visited, we couldn't spend as much time like we normally do. But there was a day when I pulled an all-nighter to finish my work in advance and spend more time with him the next day when he was scheduled to leave. Now, on the day when he was supposed to leave, he decided to extend one more day so that we could spend more time together. But here's the thing, I had a scheduled shoot the next day, and I let him know that there was a strict call time, so I could just meet him there afterwards. He insisted on bringing me, and then we could just spend the rest of the day together. So I agreed. Come the next day, and he was almost half an hour late. When he arrived, I still greeted him, gave him some love, and let him know that it was fine, but we needed to hurry since I was running really late already. Throughout the car ride, there wasn't a sense of urgency on his end, which caused us to miss 2 stoplights. And mind you, the traffic in our area is really bad, and that was one of my pet peeves. He drives really slowly, so I did react negatively, and I pointed out that I'm running late, and he could have at least told me that he would be really late, so I could have gone to the venue on my own. Anyways, he drove more quickly, and we got to the venue, but there was a bit of awkward tension between us, and we didn't really talk much then. After my shoot, we went straight to the car, and I saw that he set the GPS route back to where he was staying. So I broke the silence and told him to just drop me off somewhere so that I could eat if he was planning to go home. And after I said that, this is where things really got nasty. He's normally the sweetest and most loving person, but in that moment, he became a completely stone-cold stranger. He stopped the car a few seconds later, and with the most indifferent expression, signaled for me to get out of the car. I was in shock, and I told him that we should talk properly instead, but he refused. He said to me, "Well, you want to get out, right? Okay, then get out." I ended up telling him that I'd stay instead so that we can talk it out, and just apologized how I came off annoyed at being late. He said it was his initiative to extend his stay, as well as bring me to my event when he didn't have to. So essentially, he was calling me ungrateful. I acknowledged everything and apologized for how I reacted. And I also made it clear that it had nothing to do with that. I was just frustrated with being late, but I made sure to assure him that it was fine at the start. And I even treated him to his favorite food and offered to buy him a gift at the mall the night before, just as a thank you for staying one more day. Well, he just constantly cut me off, telling me to stop talking and that he's made up his mind that he wanted nothing to do with me anymore. He wasn't aggressive or anything like that, but he was saying all of these with the most stone-cold expression. I even tried touching his arm and he just wiped it off, acting disgusted by my touch. It was the most degrading feeling, and I just ended up being quiet the entire time we were on the way home. He ended up stopping by at a drive-thru so I could get some food, and I thought that was him kind of feeling guilty for how he talked to me, me, so I got him a snack as well, but he just refused them without even looking at me and proceeded to drop me off without saying a word and just drove off. A few hours later, he texted to apologize for how abruptly and rudely he ended things, but according to him, he said exactly what he said and he meant it. He was already going home and just said we should meet for closure 4 weeks later when he's scheduled to be in my area. Well, it's been about 2 weeks and every time I think of that day, I still break down. I can't believe how everything went down and I just don't think it's a good idea to see him anymore. I feel like he's made up his mind about the kind of person I am and I just don't want to be treated the way he treated me that day. I don't know if closure is going to do anything anymore at this point because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so in my opinion, I definitely would have blocked this guy already if I was in your shoes. Like this guy turned into a toxic jerk all of the sudden pretty much at the drop of a hat. And he did that over you being late for work and being annoyed that you were late. Like seriously, that's a terrible reason to break up with someone. And you know what? For him to be like, in 4 weeks we should have some kind of closure. Like no, that is definitely not gonna happen. I would never agree to that and I would just move on with my life. Because the way this guy acted was hostile and very toxic. And I just don't think that you deserve to go through that once again. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.